Story time about why you should be careful about who you go on vacation with. So a little background information, I was 18 years old and a senior in high school, and I had planned to go on a vacation to Barcelona in Europe with my best friend Kayla and this other girl Megan. Now, we didn't know Megan too well, but we were still friends with her. But I'm not gonna lie, the red flags started before we even left to go to Barcelona. Because as we were booking this trip, Kayla and I wanted to keep a smaller budget because we were going to be leaving for college when we got back. But Megan was not having it at all. She wanted to spend what seemed like every single last penny on this trip. But thankfully, we ended up compromising on a cheap Airbnb in the middle of Budapest. Well, fast forward to whenever we all land in Spain. So we go to the bar and we meet these two British guys. One's name was Will, and he was hanging around with Kayla and I. Then the other one, who we're gonna call Harry, he was chatting it up with Megan. Keep in mind, Megan has a boyfriend. So before we left, the guys asked for our Instagram, and Kayla and I said no, they respected it. But Megan, on the other hand, was giving out her socials. Now, initially, we weren't judging her because you can be friends with guys and have a boyfriend. Next night, we decided to hit the clubs again because literally every night there was crazy. We meet these guys. They were super cool, and one's name was Rylan and the other one's name was Ellis. Rylan was hitting on Megan, and Ellis was totally into me, which I didn't mind because he was so cute. And while we're all hanging out, Megan has the audacity to turn to me and be like, oh my god, I would totally do the nasty with Ellis if I didn't have a boyfriend. Meanwhile, she knew that I was interested in him. Anyways, so the rest of the night, Ellis and I basically spent it together. We exchanged socials, and Megan was super drunk, so we ended up going home. And then Megan decides to call her man while she's in the bed with Kayla, and we all sleep in one room so we can hear everything that the other person's doing. And then she starts having phone, you know what, with her man while she's in the bed with Kayla. And she's taking nude pics of herself and sending them while she's in the bed. Kayla felt extremely uncomfortable. Anyways, fast forward to the next day. Ellis and I hang out again, and we ended up kissing at the end of the night. And Megan was blackout drunk again, but this time on the way home, not only had she been flirting with so many guys, but she was trying to get with Ellis right in front of me. We ended up going to their apartments afterward, and literally, Megan invites him into bed with her. He didn't get into bed with her, but I was so pissed off. Like, you have a boyfriend, and also you're trying to steal some guy that you know that I like. Kayla and I were furious, so we just decided to go and walk home. Fast forward the next day, Megan wakes up and she can't remember anything that happened the day before. After this, the vibe was just awful, but Kayla and I tried to ignore it, and I'm pretty sure that Megan had no idea that there was a bad vibe. Like, I'm pretty sure that she thought nothing she did was wrong. Anyway, so we go to this beach party thing, and Megan was in charge of booking the beach party, right? Kayla and I gave her money to book tickets that was unlimited drinking. What did she do? She did not book the unlimited drinking package. She booked the regular one. Anyway, so Megan starts flirting with this 30-year-old man, and that's whenever Kayla and I decide, okay, we're gonna go walk around because we're not staying here for this. Like, this is our vacation too. Anyways, we make our way back over to Megan, and she looks pissed. She was so mad that we weren't staying with her while she talked to this old man, and we were like, we never even let you out of our sight. Like, we were barely 10 feet away from you, but we're sorry. She was like, yeah, it's the least that you can do after your behavior. And I'm like, what the fuck? So then all of us are arguing on the beach, and usually I'm the one who is very feisty, but Kayla went off. I have never seen her like this ever in my life. Because Megan thought that she could just go off on us and we were gonna stand there and say nothing. So then she orders a cab and we offer to get in it with her, but she says no, and we stayed and we had a really good night. Because one, this is our vacation too, and we are nobody's babysitters. We tried to make sure that you were having a good time, and we took care of you while you were blackout drunk, and you were not about to treat us like shit.
Am I the arsehole for telling my fiancé I won't marry him if he insists on inviting his female friend to our wedding? Story time. My fiancé has a childhood best friend called Amy. Now, I'm not the type of person who gets jealous over their partner being friends with someone of the opposite gender. Now, what bothers me in this situation is not the fact that Amy is a female, it's the fact that she literally cannot respect anyone's boundaries. I would have the same issue if the friend in talk was a male. So Amy has always been in this weird competition with me about who is more important in my Steve's life. And me and Steve have actually broken up over Amy before because he was just incapable of setting boundaries with her, so I ended it. But after that, he realised the importance of boundaries and we got back together and he ended up having a chat with Amy. Me and Amy now have one of them types of relationships where we know that we can't stand each other, but we're civil to each other's faces just to avoid the drama. And this whole situation has been stirring for the past 5 years. When Steve proposed, Amy didn't even congratulate us. It got to the point where she even refused to call me Steve's fiancé, and my fiancé Steve would keep correcting her and be like, she's not my girlfriend anymore. So now that we're planning our wedding, we are starting to choose who is going to be part of our bridal party and our groomsmen. So I beg you, please imagine my disgust when I find out that Steve wants Amy to be one of his groomsmen. And after he asked her to be a groomswoman, she sent me this text. Just so you know, I am and always will be Steve's biggest priority. You may be a wife, you may have kids one day, you may share a house, but just know that I will always be a priority to him because he picked me as a groomswoman knowing how much it would upset you. Girl, Amy has a point. She then went on to tell me that I should stay in my lane and learn my place. So I, of course, showed Steve this text message. And he told me that he would deal with her and not to take it too seriously. But I told him this was the final straw now. And I made it very clear that the only resolution I wanted now was that she was dropped from the wedding and uninvited. And I let him make the call. And now I don't know if I'm going to be able to go forward with this wedding because he cannot set clear boundaries and I don't want that from my husband. He's also said he thinks what I'm doing is very unfair to him and making him deal with everything because he isn't responsible for her actions, so why is he being made to sort it all out? He said he feels like I'm putting unnecessary pressure on him. So what do you think I should do?
Okay, so once when I was about 3 or 4, this was a long time ago, I was walking along the road beside my house with me sister and mom. I suddenly fell and then I heard the screaming. My mother and sister were panicking and I just tilted my head. I didn't understand. As my mother told my sister to go into the house and get band-aids, she sat me down and I saw it. My knees were covered in blood and I saw my skin flapping as I walked. I looked at where I fell and I realized that there was blood skid marks. Then I saw red. Everything I saw was blood smeared, but I didn't feel anything. No pain. And I was calm, which was remarkable considering the fact that I was a hyper as a kid. As I looked around, my sense of smell was incredible. I could smell flowers and food, even though the closest flowers was in a field about 1 yards away. My hearing was shooting through the roof. I heard giggles. No kids were anywhere near. It was a small child, probably a few years older than me at the time, maybe 5. Then I saw a black shape moving towards me. As the shape got closer, I saw an outline of a girl, but when I blinked, it was gone. Suddenly, the black outline popped up in my face and disappeared. The red blur around me was gone, and my senses decreased back to normal. I never felt pain, though, not even while healing. Nor do I have scars, but my sister and mom remember, as well as I. I never told them what happened during it, though. I only remembered because I was reading comment and thought of this for some reason. Was I a delusional child? Can anyone make sense of this? Whenever I remember this, I get shivers and I can imagine the girl's voice.
Am I wrong for declining an invitation to my best friend's wedding? My best friend Anne is getting married soon. She announced her engagement a year ago. When she first announced it, I was in the procedure of trying to lose weight. I was somewhere around 93 kilograms when she last saw me, and now I'm 61. We don't live in the same town anymore because I moved 6 months before she announced her engagement. So anyways, she asked me to be her bridesmaid not too long ago, and I accepted. Fast forward to my trip home. Everything goes to the dogs. When Anne saw me, she didn't seem too happy. Something was off as she barely even hugged me. She didn't say anything then, so I just assumed I was reading into it. Later that day, when we were getting lunch at a restaurant, she noticed I only got brown rice and a salad, and she commented on how I changed so much. I only laughed and told her that I was on a diet until I lost some more weight. This led to a rant from her side about how now she feels like the fat one of the two. We've been friends since high school, and she's had this thing where she treats me like I was a guy. It's weird to explain, but to put it simply, I'm 5'7" and she's barely 5 feet tall. Because of the height difference, I've always looked heavy next to her, and she took pleasure in that. She used to wear my clothes and comment on how my t-shirt is a one-piece for her, how my hands are so much bigger than hers, and some days how I look like her mother because of how tall and fat I was. This always made me feel less feminine somehow and kind of ugly. However, now that I lost the weight, I didn't look fat anymore and she couldn't do any of those cutesy things. Her words, not mine, and that really hurt her. I attempted to change the topic, but she kept circling back to that and then asked me if I lost weight deliberately for her wedding. I told her that I'd been trying to lose weight for a while before that, but her wedding was a good motivator for me. I wanted to look good at my best friend's wedding and feel more confident in a bridesmaid dress. Following that, she flat out accused me of trying to steal her thunder. She said that whenever I'd said I was going to try to lose weight, I'd relapse back to old habits pretty quick, so she didn't think I was serious. She told me that I was trying to make her look like the ugly best friend. She then proceeded on to tell me at one point that she was still prettier and daintier than me. No matter how thin I got, she'd always be thinner. She added that because of this betrayal, she no longer felt comfortable having me as a bridesmaid, and I could attend as a guest instead. That strung a nerve, and I promptly left the restaurant. I texted her later that night to tell her that I was not interested in attending her wedding at all. As a result, I've been getting messages from her and her mom. They say I stressed her out, and by declining the invitation, I'm trying to guilt trip her. So, am I the asshole?
Am I the asshole for leaving my friends for another for my ex-friend? So this happened a year ago. So I was friends with two girls, friend number 1 and friend number 2. We met in a school play. One was in my class and the other wasn't. We would fight and not be friends, and be friends, you get it right. So in a February 2023, I was in math with friend number 2 and she was off. I asked her what's wrong and she said, "Are you still gonna be friends with me?" I said, "Duh, OFC." She said that her mom said she can't be friends with friend number 1. I was like, "Why?" And she said, "It." So at recess, friend number 1 was like, "Hey, what's wrong? Why are you guys ignoring me? Do you guys not want to be my friend?" I was like, "Friend number 2, gotta tell you." So she did. She was kinda crying. By the way, the play already happened, closing parenthesis. So we were ignoring each other. We met this other girl named Jasmine. I met her first, but here was the thing: the rest of the year they were ignoring me, which bothered me. You know, at the end of the year, I added friend number 1 in Roblox and I told her how they were leaving me out and we were besties. We also pretended to hate each other. It was the last day of school and they still didn't know. So the next year I was hanging out with friend number 1 and I left them. There's still more. They told everyone about the drama and half of the girls hated us. Plot twist: friend number 1 was hanging out with Jasmine. So basically I got into a fight with friend number 1. Then the next day she was hanging out with those girls. By the way, friend number 2 was not there. Put friend number 1 got detention and friend number 2 and Jasmine were like, "Want to be friends? Why did you leave?" So I said yes, and I told friend number 1, and she's like, Then the next day, don't know how, I don't know why, but we were hanging out together, all of us, but Jasmine left for her other friend. So on November 14th, 2023, Jasmine said she's out of the group. And we were like, okay, you weren't even listening to us. But friend number 2 said she's gonna leave, like, hello. Then Jasmine said to us to leave, and then we ran for our lives. I really don't know, but my guess is we are not gonna play with them. Also, I say Jasmine, and she said, "Hi," like I'm confused.
EIFU by throwing my steak out a window. Last night, my wife's boss from her brand new job invited us over for dinner. On the drive over, my wife reiterated many times to me just how important it was to make a good impression. I scoffed and arrogantly informed my silly wife that I always make good impressions. My wife's boss is a single lady in her 50s, so it was just the three of us. We chit-chatted over drinks and salads and seemed to really be hitting it off. She laughed at my well-timed, perfectly appropriate jokes, and my wife seemed pleased. Soon, she brought up the main course, a nice big juicy steak for each of us. As I began to cut into my steak, I was discouraged to discover how undercooked this steak was. Now, I've had my fair share of rare steak. I prefer medium, but I can handle rare. This was several minutes on a hot grill short of rare. I probably could have resuscitated the cow had I tried. Instead, I sat there fidgeting with my knife and fork, worrying about how I was going to get away with not eating this steak. Claim veganism? No, I'd already feigned great enthusiasm upon seeing the steak. Just then, our hostess excused herself to the kitchen to take care of some dessert preparations. As I looked across the fancy dining room table at the open window of this third-story apartment, a cartoon light bulb appeared over my head. I knew I had to be decisive, realizing that she could return at any moment. I committed. I grabbed the steak with my hand, gently shook off the juice, and executed a perfect throw right through the center of the open window. Here's the big-time fudge-up. The window wasn't open. It was the cleanest frickin' window you would have ever seen in your life. That is, until my mostly raw slab of steak slammed up against it and slowly slid down, leaving a trail of bloody juice in its wake. My wife, whose steak was a nice medium rare and was unaware of my predicament, turned, jaw dropped, and stared at me like I was an alien from another planet. This look then slowly morphed into more of a, "there is no place on this planet you can ever hide from me" expression of demonic anger. Oh man. My wife's boss heard the thud of the steak on window impact and came quickly. She took in the scene, the steak sitting on the windowsill, the blood trail, my empty plate, and then gave me an inquisitive, puzzled look. I just didn't know what to say. It felt like a minute of silence, but was probably 3 or 4 seconds. The best I could manage was, I'm so sorry. I'm such a klutz. I don't know. I was just cutting it and it slipped. Just ask my wife. I really am a klutz, right, honey? No help coming from that direction. I will clean this up. I can't believe this. I am so sorry, etc., etc. Both women continued to stare at me like I had escaped from the loony bin as I smeared the blood around on the window with my cloth napkin, dusted off the steak, and continued to mutter my incoherent explanation. I knew no one was buying the story. I knew what I had to do. I sheepishly returned to my seat and proceeded to eat every bite of that disgusting, cold, chewy, bloody, raw steak. I remained pretty quiet the rest of the evening. My wife's only 2 words to me since the incident are, "I'm fine." Update, just got the first post "I'm fine" communication from my wife via text, who is at work. Good news, boss's name, and I just had a good laugh over how much of a idiot you are. I hope you know you will never live this down. Love you, you moron. These comments just make the story better. One question, OP. Let's say that window was open and the steak is gone. She returns a minute later. Would you tell her that you just devoured it? More comments. It's times like this when you should just fake a seizure. You should have grilled the steak under the pretense that you were killing off any germs that it might have picked up on the floor. Original OP's reply, damn it, that's a good idea. Comment, my wife's only 2 words to me since the incident are "I'm fine." The only reason I believe this story is because of that statement. Comment, I just love the thought process. OP sees the window, and in the instant he thinks to himself, alright, let's get into the update. Note, my husband told his think I fudged up from his perspective a couple of years ago, and it was a popular post. Someone suggested that I should tell it from my perspective. Hope our discomfort brings a little joy to you fine Redditors. I had just gotten a brand new job that I was really excited about, so I was delighted when my boss, who I've been trying to establish a rapport with, invited me and my husband over to her home for dinner. Well, mostly delighted. My husband is, well, he's the sweetest, but he has a history of doing really dumb shit. Because of this, I was worried about him coming along. By the time the dinner arrived, I had become so anxious about it that I actually floated the idea to my boss that I wasn't sure if he would be able to make it. She was clearly taken aback and responded, "Oh no, I really hope he can. I have dinner for 3 all ready to go." Upon seeing her dismay, I assured her that I was sure he would find a way to be there. Well, we made it over to her apartment on time, and things actually started out really, really well. It was actually just the 3 of us, which surprised me somewhat, but made me a little less concerned about my husband, as crowds really tend to bring out his unpredictability. I had just started to finally relax and was a couple of bites into a deliciously cooked steak when things took a horrible, horrible turn. My boss had just stepped into the kitchen to check on dessert when I noticed something odd out of the corner of my eye. It was one of those things where you know something strange is happening in your peripheral vision, but you're not sure what. You have to look over and focus your gaze to really comprehend it. I look at my husband and see him holding his steak in his hand, hovering it just an inch or 2 above his plate. Before I had a chance to fully comprehend what I was seeing and verbalize something that might have saved us all from the coming horror, he threw his steak, baseball style, across the room straight into the dining room window. It hit the window, making a loud noise, and slowly slid down. Now, my husband does dumb shit. I already told you that. But he's not a crazy person. Usually when he does dumb shit, I at least understand what he's thinking. There's usually some semblance of rhyme or reason to the dumb shit. In this case, I was just dumbfounded. I couldn't believe my eyes. I couldn't wrap my head around what was going on. I stared at him with what must have been the most confused look and watched as he stared back at me. An expression of utter horror painted across his face. I couldn't make any sense of what was happening, but I also didn't have time to try. I heard the footsteps of my boss coming to see what the sound was. It suddenly sunk in that it didn't matter why he did what he did. He did it, and we were about to come face to face with a very awkward situation. I could feel the anger flush through my face. For a brief moment, I contemplated trying to help my husband get out of this, but no, this was his dumb shit bed and he could lie in it. Not like there was any possibility of recovery anyway. My boss walks in and sees the steak lying on the windowsill. There's the longest, most awkward pause where we all just sit there frozen. My boss and I are staring at my husband, forcing the ball into his court as the cringe just hangs in the air like an ocean fog. He finally manages to mutter some incoherent garbage about being a klutz and even tries to get me to back him up. I leave his ass out to dry in the deafening silence. He makes a poor attempt at cleaning the window and retrieves his steak. Mercifully, my boss asks me a question about work and we both dive eagerly into conversation. We all resume the rest of the evening pretending that he isn't there. an unspoken agreement by all that this is the only way of moving forward. As soon as we get to the car, my husband turned into a nervous chatterbox trying to explain himself. Turns out the dumbass didn't like the way his steak was cooked, rare, and get this, he thought the window was open. My husband, ladies and gentlemen, tried to chuck his steak out a 3-story window. He thought that was a reasonable solution to being served an undercooked steak. A year or so later, my boss hosted a Christmas party for the company at her newly built home. My best friend, Jenny, was my +1. Edit. Okay, guys, I probably overplayed the dumb shit angle. Yeah, he's known for acting without thinking things through, but this one moment does not represent the norm. From my perspective, in this moment, he looked like a loony bin character gone mad, which is what makes the story so funny in retrospect. My husband is a fun-loving, kind husband and father who makes life very fun. Oh well. Glad that most of you got the same small bit of enjoyment out of your day from the story. Also, we all have our faults. I joke about my husband not thinking things through. He jokes about my preoccupation with what others think of me, etc., etc. Relevant comments, it would have been amazing if you pulled it off, only to have the steak splat on the windshield of a car. Another user replies, it would have been more amazing to hear his ridiculous half-wit explanation of how he ate the entire steak in a matter of a few seconds. She married Peter Griffin.
I'm on week 3 of no contact with my whack-ass hoes. If you're new here, I've been on a men's cleanse, so I literally cut every single man off. I was like, fuck all of you. Like, I genuinely just hated dating. Like, just the men were trash, the men were trash. I've been doing this thing, a men's cleanse, where you just literally have, like, no communication with men, focus on yourself, fuck these men kind of thing. Rightfully so, because it was getting treacherous out there. There are some things I've learned about myself, or things that have happened during my much-needed men's cleanse. Number 1, all those motherfuckers came back. Like, literally. And the thing is, you know what's so sad? It's like, I knew they'd all come back one day, but I'm not even excited. Like, I felt like I would be like, oh my god, kind of thing, obviously, when one of your exes comes back. And I'm just like, really? What the fuck do you want? Like, I've reached a point, like, if you're not coming in to offer me anything substantial, or like, I'm not here for you just to like apologize for your actions or anything like that. Do your own fucking healing and don't include me in it. You're not coming in to be like, oh my god, I changed so much, or da-da-da, I can give you exactly what you want kind of thing. I'm not really fucking interested. And the men that have came back, I'm still just like not interested. Here's the thing, another thing during this men's cleanse, I have became so clear as to what I want out of dating when I decide to go back to dating. I'm not fucking around with these dumb little hoes anymore. Like, I want a partner in this lifetime. I want somebody who can support me, understands my life, like be there for me. Like, I'm not settling for these whack ass motherfuckers anymore just because I'm bored. Yeah, I had a couple of them come back, and the thing is, like, the way they reached out to me, they weren't even saying shit, just adding my ass on Snapchat. And I was like, if you're gonna come in, be that immature and just like view my stories for 24 hours, I'm blocking your bitch ass. Like, get out of the way. I feel like I've become so comfortable with peace that chaos genuinely disgusts me now. Any conversation I'm gonna have with a man is like, this is what I want. You never stepped up to the plate. You were never that. And if you don't intend to be that, make room, bitch. Like, get out of the way. Like, what? You're gonna block my blessings? No, move, bitch. I'm also just so genuinely 30 times more focused on the things that I want to accomplish, the new projects I have coming up, my goals, dreams, like 5-year plan, babe, like I have it written out. Also, with this men's cleanse, it brings a lot of healing. Healing's fucking hard, bitch. Like, I genuinely feel like I need to apologize to the woman I was the past 6 months and like allowing her to date fucking losers, because like, she didn't deserve that. Honestly, overall, everything just feels 20 times more clear to me as to what I want out of all aspects of my life. Honestly, there's just such a peace about having a dry ass fucking phone and unfollowing men on Instagram who just like annoy the absolute fuck out of me. And that's, it's like the ones that are like asking me on dates. I'm like, ew, just like and it's like people I know I would never date is the thing. It's like, I'm just like unfollowing them. Like, there's really no reason for me to have them on my Insta. If you or a loved one is pondering a men's cleanse, bitch, fucking do it.
Storytime about how my mother-in-law yelled at me at my wedding. Yes, I'm congested. My husband has a serious case of mamitis. This means he's a mama's boy, but to like the 10th degree. He calls his mother up to 10 times a day. He calls her to ask her questions about food, how to wash the laundry, what to buy at the supermarket. Problem is, he doesn't ask me these things. So before long, she started thinking that I don't know how to do anything, which is why my husband calls her to ask her everything. When we got engaged, I asked him to set some boundaries with his mom. To me, it was the healthiest thing we could possibly do for our future, and he agreed. Instead of calling her for everything, he started asking me questions. And of course, this worked better because we decided to do things our way, not his mother's way. A couple of months later, his mom came to visit. The first couple of days she was at our apartment, it was totally fine. We have an extra bedroom, so we had our own privacy. But she soon started criticizing everything we did. The way we washed the dishes, even the type of cooking oil that I used, or the fact that we liked the apartment pretty clean. So my husband asked her to just clean up after herself in the kitchen. This woman makes such a big mess every single time she cooks. I threatened to kick her out. After 2 weeks of her staying at our apartment, I threatened to kick her out. Of course, my now husband said absolutely not. All he asked me to do was have patience with her, which I thought was honestly unfair. She had been criticizing everything we did. Can you imagine somebody coming into your apartment and criticizing everything you do down to the way you wash the dishes and how you wash your laundry? No. Only escape was going to work and to the gym. So I just started spending more time outside the apartment. Because I was gone, she was taking over. I'd come home and she would stock the fridge with things that I hated. Food that would actually make me feel sick. I also stocked the pantry with things that we don't like to eat. You see, he and I are very healthy. He's of the mindset that butter makes everything better. Which is fine if you want to do that, but I don't. When she finally left our apartment, I told my husband everything I thought. I mean, he kind of agreed with me, but he also said that I was overreacting. We're getting married 3 weeks later. At this point, the planning was going on and it was crazy. I still hadn't chosen a dress. Lead up to the wedding was really stressful. Luckily, we had a planner, so she kind of took over. Then my mother-in-law started getting angry at everything the planner was doing. She didn't like the food menu. She didn't like my dress. Didn't like the makeup. Didn't like the bridesmaids' dresses. Our mother-in-law was acting like Bridezilla. Started behaving like it was her wedding. She even told the wedding planner that she needed to edit the menu herself. When my wedding planner told her that I needed to approve, she said no. She had already had a conversation with me about it, which by the way was not true. I actually felt bad that she was so stressed. I agreed to change some of the things on the menu, but this caused a huge argument between me and my fiance. He and I actually didn't speak for 2 days before the wedding, all because of his mom. The day of the wedding rolls around and everything is perfect. Lo and behold, my mother-in-law finds something to criticize. Comes up to me at the reception and says, "Do you know that they're serving vegan canapes?" At that point, I didn't give a shit. With a stern voice, I told her to sit down and just enjoy the wedding. As I'm walking away from her, she starts yelling. She yells out that I'm an ungrateful brat. Turned to her, and then I just walked away. I was not going to let her make the wedding about herself. My husband ended up taking control of the situation, thank God. He ended up apologizing about 2 minutes later. Damage is done though. I told my husband she can't stay at our apartment anymore. She's definitely not going to have any control over our children. Am I overreacting, or should I give her a second chance? Self-care sister out.
I woke up and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna piss my mom off today. A woman loves to piss me off. I'm like, it's time for me to I just woke up and I was like, choosing fucking violence. My mom and I have been beefing a little bit as is because this woman wants to plan Thanksgiving like 3 weeks ahead. And I'm like, Mom, I don't even understand or know my schedule to like the week before. I'm not planning. I'm not planning ahead like this, and we're not even close to Thanksgiving. Well, now we kind of are. Whatever, but she's very stressed because her boyfriend, the love of her life, you would think no man ever fucking exists besides this man, is coming to Thanksgiving. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so excited for Brad to come to Thanksgiving. And I won't lie, I did make a comment. No, and this is wrong of me. Last week, she was pissing me off so badly, and I made a comment calling him weird. And then I was like, no, I'm sorry. He's not weird. You're just really fucking weird about him. Whatever. So ever since that day, we've been kind of beefing. Like, and it's wrong. I shouldn't have called her man's weird. Like, he's really not weird. I actually like him a lot. It's just she's weird. Like, she's the weird one. Regardless, he's coming to Thanksgiving. I'm like, I'm so excited. She's like, Olivia, you better be on your best fucking behavior. I'm like, okay, first of all, I'm a grown-ass woman. Like, you cannot tell me to, like, what does she think I'm gonna do? Then I'm like, let me fuck with her. And I was like, you know what would be such a good game to do with your boyfriend there and all? Is like, why don't we just go around the table and say our favorite things about my father? Like, okay, obviously, like, my dad's not in my life and they had like a horrible relationship. And like, you're like, Livy, that's like literally not funny. No, we like to joke about him, okay? She was talking to me about games that we could play for Thanksgiving, and I was like, a good one would be, let's name our favorite memories with my father. And she's like, Olivia, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, that's not even funny. Brad would be horrified. And she was like, we don't even like your father. Why would we play that game? I was like, to spice up Thanksgiving, Mom. Mom was like, I can never control what comes out of that fucking mouth of yours. And it's so annoying, da 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 da. And I'm like, you're complaining about my mouth and what I say? I was like, that is rich coming from a bitch who is asking me for like $1,000 Christmas presents. Like, this is the amount that gets paid, bitch. Like, if you don't like it, then like, okay, we don't have to do Christmas. No presents for mommy. No presents for mommy. Also, I just said that to piss her off because in what world would I sit there and want to talk about my father? Like there's just like, no, I'm like, you literally don't even know me. Like, why would I do that? I forget that motherfucker exists. Like, I genuinely, like, he's not in my life. Why would I think about him? For her to think I'm dead ass serious that we would play that game in front of Brad is just, it's too good for me to even tell her I'm kidding. You know what I mean? It's too good to even give her a peace of mind that I would never do something like that. Now that I tell this story, I'm like, wait, how funny would it be if I got like Sissy and my other sister involved too, and we're like, no, this is such a good game. Like, let's play our favorite childhood traumas. Everyone's involved. Let's go. Thanksgiving's about to be real fucking interesting, I'll tell you that much.